Hey everyone, I'm doing my John Maxwell and I did have one more chapter left to finish. So this chapter was on the last chapter and it's basically leadership gold. You only get answers to the questions you ask. So I guess the self-reflection questions that John Maxwell has for us to ask ourselves is if our ego is getting in the way of our growth. So especially if you come to Canada, you have to be prepared to work hard and you have to also be prepared to be a lifelong learner. So I know that things always change. If you look at the last ship, if you look at things, technology takes over a lot of our jobs. Many of the functions that we used to have to do manually, we can now do through chat or we can now do through emails. So we have to always be prepared to learn, to grow, and to change. And it doesn't matter how old we are. A lot of my supervisors are younger than me, but I don't mind because I learn from them. The same way that I taught my mom how to use her emails, how to reference things, how to use her phone when she came to Canada, I learned from them. So I don't mind having managers that are younger than me because they're more tech savvy than me. And I pick things up fast, but I like to learn from them. And young people are also the ones that are more likely to get the opportunities in North America because they can work a lot of different shifts, a lot of different hours. As we get older, our bodies change and we have to be able to accept those changes. It's part of life, and sometimes we need a little bit of help, a little bit of accommodation. And that's what we do. And then we have to ask ourselves if we're investing in ourselves. We can't just depend on our companies anymore. It's not like the old days where companies hired you and they invested in you and they helped you to grow and develop and they got you into your career of choice. It certainly hasn't been the case for me in Canada. I trained myself with project management. I went and I took a course at HRPA, and with HR, with everything I've done, people have not invested in me. I've invested in myself, and I've invested in my education and in my developing myself, in my personal growth and in my career development. And we have to genuinely have motives to be interested in others. So if you look at what I went through in the banking industry, I wasn't just reaching out to my past managers to complain. I genuinely wanted them to know what was happening to me, that I was being harassed, that people were making a big joke out of what I was saying, and it was hurting me, and I didn't like it, and I wanted it to stop. But people just said, they just joke, that's just how the guy is. And of course, my life got spoiled, my reputation got spoiled, but you see, what goes around comes around, because now they can't put it all on me. They can't blame me. I can apply for permanent jobs now in banking, at Ernst Young, in the consulting firms, because everything's interconnected. And when you have one bad mark against your name, the people that work with the senior leaders don't want to get you into those senior roles. Because they're like, she must be just making it up. She must be the problem. And when you're a woman, it's worse. So in a way, I'm glad that all of this happened. Not to say that I'm glad people suffered and there were murders and all that with Credit Suisse, but I'm glad the truth came out. And I'm glad that people have to take me seriously now because I had a real case with the Human Rights Commission. And it's important that people know that I'm an educated woman, I'm not stupid, and I'm not somebody that just makes things up and goes around telling lies and saying, wasting taxpayers' money, reporting things to the police that are not true. I would never do that, and it's not fair to me that that's the judgment and that's the impression that was created of me, because other people wouldn't tell the truth. And also, we have to have passion about what we do. Are we really interested in what we're doing? Are we really interested in serving our customers, in helping them? Are we genuine in what we're doing? Because if we're not, people will notice that. And if we don't care, when the time comes for others to help, they will not help us. So an example is that when I went yesterday, I had to change my phone. My phone broke. So I had to get a new phone, and the people that helped me were very good. And even when I called Virgin, they said they'll take off the upgrade fee for me, because today phones are so expensive. It's not like the old days, and if you don't have the latest updates, your phone doesn't work properly. So I was happy because I give 100% to my customers, and it was nice to be treated with the same respect and consideration. I wouldn't like it if I was on a call and then I just said to the customer, oh, hold on, and I spoke to my manager and the customer's sitting waiting. So it's good to have that same respect given back to you. And also we have to spend our time, are we asking ourselves, am I investing my time with the right people? So if I want to work in a position that's related to sports, so if I want to work in an administrative position, I have to think about which relationships am I investing in? Are those people helping me? I used to run the children's liturgy at Blessed Sacrament, and I used to help there. But do those relationships necessarily help get me in the door as an executive assistant? Not necessarily, because most times people are looking out for their own interests. So they might work with me, they might like me, but that's not to say that they'll put my name forward. So I have to also develop relationships with people who can help me. And I reach out to people, I ask for help. If they say no and they wish me well in my endeavors, I just say thank you. And I move on to the next person, because it's like voting. You don't know how many doors you have to knock on before that right door opens for you. And also we have to be effective. Are we staying in our strength zones? So strength zones can also be developed. When I started working in the chats, I couldn't do them because of everything I'd gone through. I could not manage the 3 chats. But slowly I started doing 1, then I started doing 2. Now I can do 3. So sometimes it's just a matter of learning and growing and hitting those targets and keeping on improving, because things do change and we have to adapt to them. Also, am I taking others to a higher level? So if I can hold myself to a level, I also need to hold others to a higher level. And I have not hidden what's happened in my career in banking. I have not hidden the passion and the love I had for the people I supported when I first went into banking. But I've also not hidden the fact that they pushed back. They told me I had an attitude of entitlement. And I never once played the victim. I never told them I was a refugee. I never told them about how much we went through in Zimbabwe. I never once told them any of that. I went in treating myself as if I had come from a level playing field, not being a visible minority, not being a refugee, not being anything. I never told them anything. I treated myself as equal, and even my professors at Regis were saying, no, you should push for affirmative action and you should push for them to help you. And I said to them, what's the point? They're not going to support me if I do that. If they're not supporting me with my education, my credentials, what I have to offer, they're not going to support me. So companies change very, very slowly. We do not have affirmative action in Canada. We do not have it on our boards. We don't have it. So whatever positions I got based on the strength of my skills. All my board positions, no one helped me, no one introduced me. I went on to Ultravest and I applied for them and I got them. So we have to be able to know the signs and know the landscape of Canada and what we're dealing with. And also, am I taking care of today? The Pope John Paul always used to say the future is now. Whatever decisions we make today, hopefully those decisions will help us in the future. It's not to say that things don't change. Things do change, like the bridge to Norway, where people built this bridge and then the weather changed and that bridge landed up being useless. Things do change. It's not to say that things don't change, but we have to make the right decisions for now, for today, so that we can have success, hopefully, in the future. And am I taking the time to think? People will say to me, oh, don't think too much, go with the flow, live in the moment. And those things are true, especially in times of war. But we also have to think about what decisions we're making now that are going to impact the future. And I know for me, like when I never used to get invited to my sister's events, I used to tell my mother, and then I'm going to be left all alone. You're saying don't go, don't call them, don't phone them, don't give them gifts. I said, I'm going to be left all alone then. I'll be excluded from all the family things. And she said, well, they don't care about you. Why do you keep on doing it? I said, well, it's fine for you because you live with them, you see them. I had a good relationship with them when I lived with them. I enjoyed the children. I used to go to everything I was invited to. And it's not as simple as saying just leave it. But I wanted to please my mother. I wanted to make her happy, so I left it. And unfortunately, that's one of those things, not to say that I don't miss them, that I don't think of them. Of course I do. But I want my mother to be happy. It really kills me when I phone her and she's crying and she's miserable. And it's not my fault, all the things that have happened to her. It's not my fault she had to sit in Fernandez Trading. Sometimes there were no customers, sometimes she was by herself. At least she had company, she had our workers she can talk to. It's not all the things that happened to my mother that I get blamed for are not my fault. But unfortunately, some of it is a result of the Indian culture. So it's hard. It is very hard, and it's very hard for me. For a long time, I never used to pay any attention to this harassment. I used to just go, but I got sick of it. Everywhere I went, Eddie, she's here. Anita, she's here. And I was like, this is going on and on and on, and I'm tired of it. So eventually when I filed those reports with the police, it was because they were frightened for me. They came here and they said, make sure your door is locked, always report it. And then when they asked me, what do you think Eddie is going to say? I said, I don't know. Why don't you ask him what he's going to say? Why are you asking me? And I don't blame the COO for what happened to me from Credit Suisse. I blame him because he must have been telling her, tell them I want to be a friend. Yet he would never return my calls. He would never talk to me. And yet the whole banking industry knew that this person wanted to be my friend. And it wasn't fair to me. I was very professional. I did a good job. And my career suffered. My finances suffered. So we have to think. We have to take time to think. And I don't speak for others. I told the police that. Why are you asking me? Ask them. You want to know what they're going to say? Ask them. And let them tell you what they think. And also, am I developing other leaders? That's the legacy we leave. So we have to invest in others, we have to develop other leaders, and we have to grow our communities. And leadership is not being in management. Management is one aspect, but leadership is how we serve our communities, our families, how we help others. And also, am I pleasing God? That's our faith. So if you don't believe in God and you don't have faith, maybe you can ignore that question. But for me, I believe in God and I have faith. So sometimes you take a risk and it pays off. And other times you take a risk and you'll end up suffering. But there are many, many testimony stories from Moses to Jesus' life, to Mother Mary's life, to St. Joseph, of how God uses our pain to transform society. And it's not easy. I'm not saying it's easy. I'd give our examples of Robert Mugabe in Zimbabwe or Nelson Mandela. They put Nelson Mandela on a pedestal and they criticize Mugabe. But you can't tell me that the atrocities that took place in South Africa were any less than they took place in Zimbabwe. The necklacing, the burning of children with tires around their necks. I mean, at least in Zim, we didn't have shootings in our schools. When they took those children, they took the children knowing that the police were waiting in Soweto. The children didn't know. But we are not children, and no one has a right to do that to us, to blindside us and make arrangements, and even to the children, it shouldn't have been done. The children should have had a say in that. But we have to weigh the pros and cons. So those are the questions, those are how I use them for my own life and my own experience, and how I use them to reflect. And working on yourself is often the hardest. It's easy for other people to judge me, to criticize me, but I do my own self-reflection, I do my own thinking, I do my own journaling, I do my own, so that I can say, okay, what steps can I take? How can I change this? Who do I need to speak to? Whose advice do I need to get? And with my harassment case, I didn't just have the lawyers that took up my case for me with Credit Suisse now. I consulted many other lawyers, and all of them said to me, Belinda, you are in the right. You are not in the wrong, you are in the right. But they wouldn't take it forward. Why? Because everything's so interconnected in banking. With the Ernst Youngs, the Deloittes, the Accentures, everything's interconnected. So they didn't take it up, but the final lawyer that I went to, he said to me, no, this has to stop. I'll take it up for you. Because my whole life was being spoiled. I couldn't get any work. And then what would have happened to me? Where would I have landed up with all my education and skills and degrees and all that? Where would I have landed up? So it's important. You can't just say, oh, it's just one person's life, because my life has impacted a lot of other people's lives, not only here, but in Zimbabwe, in South Africa, the leaders I represent in South Africa, my university in South Africa, my university here, is not just about me. It's about all the other people. And even with Roger Federer's foundation, I mean, I don't expect these big tennis players to have any time for me, to come to me, to ask me for my help. I will not touch their money. I made that very clear. But I have a lot of respect for them. And I have a lot of time for them. And I help them wherever I can. But all of us have to take the time to reflect and to think about our lives. And so for me, not just in my spiritual direction, but in my business roles too, I spend a lot of time reflecting on what I can do, how I can change things, and how I can help to make things better. And if other people didn't take that in the right way, and other people didn't see that, there's nothing I can do about that. Because I did it with the right intention.